In this video, we're going to talk about running interval programs. So in the previous video, we talked about setting up the interval programs, and now we're going to see what they look like on the data sheet. So we're going to click Start Session, open up my data sheet. I'm going to scroll down to my interval programs. I put a couple on there so you can kind of see the different options. This first one is tied to the session timer, so that's one of the options on that programs page. I set this one also to have a default answer of no. So it started counting down my 10-second intervals when I started that session, and it's going to record no for every interval unless I click and say yes. So that's the option there. You can have that default time. It's tied to the session timer. It starts as soon as you start that session. You can also pause that interval timer if you need to and restart it. The next one down here has a separate timer, so it's not tied to the session timer. So at any time I can start that. I did not set a default response here, so it will just show blank, and I have to come in and say yes or no. So if I do not respond, it's going to mark a blank interval. So that's the option here. You have to respond or put a yes or no in order to record data on that interval. So it's showing here that I have 3 intervals have elapsed, but I've only taken that one trial, or we're on the 3rd interval. I've only taken now that 2 trials. So that's what that looks like. Now here we have an interval program with a separate timer with a pause. So it's going to alert me at the end of an interval, and I set it to alert me with 5 seconds remaining, and now it's going to pause. And now I'm going to take my data. So I'm going to mark whether it's yes or no. Again, I set a default response for this. I'm going to set yes or no, and then I'm going to push play till it gets to the end of the interval to make sure I record any instance of that behavior happening. Now my interval starts over, and at 5 seconds remaining, it's going to pause, and I take my data there and then restart that timer. So those are the settings that you will see when you are running an interval program. Now when you finish your session for the day, you'll be able to see the interval data on the session summary after you've completed your note. So here is our interval program that is tied to the session timer. You can see all of the individual intervals, and if you hover over them, you'll be able to see what the individual trial was and at what timestamp within the session that data point was taken. So you can see here it says trial number 3 at 29 seconds into the session, the interval target, and the answer was yes, or the prompt level was yes. You can see all the intervals taken there, and then it will tell you a total number here. Here's the one with a separate timer. Here you can see we did not record data. We didn't have a default option. So here in trial number 2 is blank. So if that is the case and you needed to record data, you can go up here, edit session data, scroll down to your interval program, and we can add data for that there. You can also add an additional interval here if you need to and adjust there and then save that data. Finally, here is the separate timer with pause, and you can see here the same thing, all of our data that was taken for that interval program.